The effects coming in stronger now?
Not really. I could talk to a cop. I could call my parents on the phone. There is definite activity, but then the actual character of the activity is unclear, and the duration of the activity is unclear. All you know is that there is a drug effect going on.
So my interest in this came from a news report that I had seen on a Saturday afternoon where there was a report on people in South Africa using efavirenz recreationally.
At the University of Texas, I met with John Setch, a pharmacologist who published a groundbreaking paper that demonstrated the unexpected activity of efavirenz as a classical psychedelic. Dr. Setch found that efavirenz can substitute for LSD in specially trained rats.
Basically, they train a rat in a lever press task, and they can discriminate or tell the difference by pressing a lever. So you train them up on, let's say, LSD versus saline. So one lever, they would press it if they are experiencing saline, or they would press the other lever if they're experiencing LSD. What you do in those trained animals is then you substitute in, let's say, your experimental drug. In this case, it would be efavirenz. And so in rats trained to discriminate LSD from saline, when we substituted in efavirenz, the drugs they had never experienced, they pushed the lever saying that it was like LSD. We were prevented from testing even higher doses, but at higher doses of efavirenz, the animals don't press levers, and so you're sort of limited by how high a dose.
I mean, there's maybe a little trailing activity, maybe a tiny bit of trailing, a tiny bit. Because the effect is already so subtle, I'm going to go forward and take a full 900 milligrams.
Although there's no way to evaluate whether or not a rodent is hallucinating, scientists have discovered that classical psychedelics induce a unique effect in mice and rats. That effect is called the head twitch response.
They mark with an asterisk to alert you that the head twitch response will occur. It's very rapid. There it was. If you're not looking, you'll miss it. You see that application of the same concentration of efavirenz doesn't produce head twitch in the knockout mouse, suggesting that the head twitch response is being mediated through the 5-HT2A receptor.
5-HT2A is a subtype of serotonin receptor that plays an important role in the activity of classical psychedelics. When activity at 5-HT2A is blocked, genetically or pharmacologically, rodents no longer display the head twitch response. We're in Linville, near Witbank, on our way to meet some nyaope dealers who are going to be cutting their product with antiretroviral drugs, supposedly. Whether or not this will actually take place is unclear, especially because they're using the word cook somewhat ambiguously, and I don't know what cooking really means in this context. As we approached the lair of the clandestine nyaope cooks, I prepared myself to finally understand the logic behind their strange recipe. How did you come upon this particular formula? How did you decide that all of these different ingredients would be useful in the final product?
You see, every nation did took part to formulate this thing. You see, when we are together, people with different ideas, we combine them, we come up with one big thing.
Though I had remained skeptical throughout my research, when I saw the ARV tablets on the table of the cutters, I was forced to confront the possibility that the stories were true.
There's a guy that came from Nigeria by the name of Olu. He's the one who came with the formula.
Who do you think taught him?
He said he thought by his uncle, the uncle of his was working for another Chinese guy who was staying in Joburg.
These guys learn their recipes, and then when they have the recipe, that's their stock in trade. Because it's a secret, there's no Darwinian action to the idea. Because they don't really understand how it's happening. They just learn somebody's taught them how to do this.
When we grind the latex, we don't just take the too much of it, just a little bit. The thing is the dizziness. Your body's here with me, but your mind will be on the other side of town, you see.
It's hard to tell what's actually having a pharmacological effect and how much of it's just tradition or folklore.
These pills, they give it a power to make you drunk. They store it at the clinics, at the hospital, and they supply us.
Probably the antiretrovirals are a minor part of the orchestra there, just because it's available. Despite the fact that it's actually very expensive drug, it's around, people got access to it, so they toss that in this tube as well.
And I see that you have 3 different antiretroviral drugs there. Do you think that one of them is better than the others?
It's just when you take this one and this one, you make a mixture, it becomes the power of this one.
After introducing a teaspoon of Ratax pellets and saturating the crushed powder with apple cider vinegar, the nyaope cooks wrapped the pink paste in aluminum foil and placed it in a microwave.
I think this is largely drug use born out of poverty and boredom. People are obviously experimenting with a lot of things until they get it right.
You see, to avoid certain things, we took the foil out.
And so if you had a choice between pure heroin or the nyaope mixture that you make, which would you choose?
No, I would choose this one because it's a little bit better.
So if you use the pure opium tar from the poppy plant, you'd expect very bad stomach pains.
Yes.
But if you put rat poison into that tar, it actually makes the stomach pains less severe.
Yes. Not too much of it. Because we are cooking, this thing, it affects us more than the one who smoke. You see, my original body is not like this. My original color is not like this. When you see my photos before now, sometimes I cry.
And the journey continues.
So we make the assumptions that the studies that we do in animals will translate one-to-one into humans, and that may not be true. It may only be partly true. We never tried to simulate having the rats smoke the drug.
Because recreational users smoke efavirenz, the temperature could transform the chemical into an entirely different molecule. To test this hypothesis, I met with the medicinal chemist Jason Wallach to burn efavirenz under controlled conditions.
For this experiment, we're going to use the entirety of the pill to try and simulate the exact conditions that the tablet is smoked in South Africa.
Yeah, what's really cool is at this lab that I'm working at, we're building a machine that's like a machine that will smoke a tablet, and then we can collect all of the smoke and chemically analyze it to see how the drug is changed when it's burned. It's kind of like a series of bongs that you use for smoking weed, all connected to one another with a vacuum on one side and a pipe on the other. And then you're able to just take out the water and analyze what's in it.
Our hypothesis was correct. When heated under certain conditions, efavirenz is transformed into an entirely different molecule, the pharmacology of which is unknown. Even the activity of the drug when it's consumed orally is something I'm just beginning to understand.
I am fully efavirenzed now. Oh man, is it psychedelic in a certain way? I feel sedated, I feel relaxed. but I feel a connection to every other time that I've attempted to articulate a psychedelic experience in front of a camera right now. It feels like it's part of a continuum, a strange, eternal camera articulation continuum. You know, if you feel the effect of weed, you can say, I'm stoned, and people will know I am under the influence of cannabis. If you say I'm drunk from alcohol, people will understand what that feels like. But if you say I'm efavirenz,
I mean, you have to imagine there are literally thousands of targets for drugs in your body. I would venture to say that most drugs are interacting on more than one target. We would certainly hope to develop drugs that wouldn't have some of the side effect profiles that you currently see, and that might also, we believe we could probably simultaneously engineer out any abuse potential for the compounds.
I would argue that in South Africa, adherence to antiretroviral drugs has actually been quite high, and I think the bizarre images and the very vivid dreams, they seem to create the impression that the antiretroviral drugs are very potent and very powerful, and that they're potent and powerful enough to fight a very powerful disease.
Like the tingly stuff in the, you know, the anti-dandruff shampoo or whatever. Something that people, whether it has any actual effect on the condition or not, that actually lets people know, okay, you're experiencing a pharmacological effect now.
When you consider that possibility, it seems like it could actually be detrimental to redesign the drug in such a way that it doesn't have any psychoactive properties anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't seen any controlled studies done on that, so I'd have to evaluate that data in terms of compliance.
all right, okay, the mice discriminated that stimulus correctly. A whole new world just opened up. A whole new pharmacophore, a whole new scaffold. This could be a completely new base structure to make new psychedelics. It could be an entirely new class.
Everything improves, you know. The computer started being a big computer. Now we carry it, it's a laptop. The next time it won't be a laptop, it's just a wash. You know, everything changes.
Efavirenz is psychedelic. At the beginning of the piece, I said that you had to take the drug in order to understand it, and that's what psychopharmacology is all about, which is a little bit of an oversimplification, but it's true that there are certain questions in psychopharmacology that can't be effectively answered by a rodent. I hadn't seen anyone write, I've taken it, it is psychedelic, it's comparable to LSD. Nothing like that existed, and for that reason I wanted to take it. And for that reason it was useful to take it, because I answered my question. It is classically psychedelic. That said, it's not pleasant at all. Although the acute effects were somewhat enjoyable and comparable to mescaline, I was bedridden and totally incapacitated for almost 2 days afterwards. So this is something I've actually been very conflicted about reporting on. On one hand, I understand and feel a responsibility for conveying accurate information about this substance. But the possibility that anyone would divert this drug away from its intended medical purpose is actually very frightening. It is psychedelic, but so are lots of other things that are more potent, less expensive, and less toxic and dangerous to use at high doses.